And then all of a sudden you realise you've got these tax bills, or you've got that investment over there in Florida, that's a scam. So that was all unravelling. And I had a spell on cocaine and smoking some weed, and got to the point where I didn't think I could do things without it. But then when you fall into that trap, you're in a bad cycle quickly. I'm not somebody who's particularly business-minded. I mean, I've had some cruel blows along the way with financial advice, which I've, bounced back from, recovered from.
Okay.
And I'm, as I said before, without going too deep on it, my life balance and my priorities aren't making as much money as I can to sit in my 60s in a bigger house or a nicer car, because I've, for probably since 2018 now, I had a bad year, 17, 18, off the field. I was in a bad place. Probably about 12, 18 months I had a bad, 2017 was a bad year.
Okay.
And when I got some help and came back from that and re-energized and refocused my priorities and things, I decided to make my kids and my relationship with them my number one priority, even ahead of work. I didn't give up work, of course, but I stayed true to that and still have. And I've got a really nice balance. I think me having such a low and a really bad time and hitting some really low points, which I never...
You mentioned 2017 was really bad. Why was that such a bad year?
I think it was an accumulation of things. I think it was a little bit of delayed from the football, putting together the jigsaw piece of my finances that had gone a bit wrong with bad advice and some fraud and some problems.
Are you able to share any details on that?
A little bit. I mean, the reality was that a lot of Premier League footballers, when the Premier League boom started, if you like, started earning money and then became targets.
Yeah.
For IFAs, for companies, for film schemes, killed people. They were, I don't know if you know about the film schemes, they were something that the government changed legislation on.
It was supposed to be like a tax write-off, was it?
Well, tax relief if you invested in the film schemes. And anyway, so a lot of footballers were finishing, including me, putting together, what's that investment doing? What's that doing there? Which is something you never really, when you play it sounds really flippant and stupid, but you don't really care about. It's like you've put your trust in a company or a person that have 40 other players, 20 managers, 16 golfers. It's like, that's fine. They're not going to do me over.
And it's so complicated that unless you speak that language, it's really hard to understand.
There you go.
Anyway.
That's the simplified version. And then all of a sudden you realise you've got these tax bills, or you've got that investment over there in Florida. That's a scam. That's somebody's found that out. And then you start unpicking this. So that was all unravelling.
Yeah.
And I think the main thing was that I'd probably, when we talk about the adoration, the dopamine, it was probably mid 2016 coming on to 17, where I think after a few years of having the holiday period I talked about, I'd started to feel like, what the hell, I'm feeling where I've got, and I started chasing the feelings. And of course, how do you chase the feelings? Drink, drugs, partying. I had my golf, which helped because I was obsessed with trying to get better at golf. But then when you fall into that trap, you're in a bad cycle quickly.
Okay.
And you think you're controlling it at first. You think you're hiding it from people.
Right.
And then I ended up, just hitting, I say rock bottom. Compared to some people, they'd probably laugh, because some people have hit rock bottom for 10, 20 years in a worse place than I ever was. But I was in my bad place, let's put it that way.
Okay.
I wasn't communicating, I was isolating, I was starting to switch off from people, family, friends, using drugs on my own at times, and then just got help. In the end, I don't think I had any choice other than I didn't feel like, which is a good thing, I didn't feel like I had any choice to continue on that journey.
Okay.
I think I don't know whether it was how I got there, but my brain was kind of like, enough, this is, I'm causing damage everywhere. Okay. And I had my kids that I needed to, they were a real focus for me.
Yeah.
And then the penny kind of dropped with some help. And then I just went on a bit of a mission to get strong and well and resilient again, and be a good dad and a good son again. And I had a marriage split up. We're friends now. That's time does that. That's great.
Yeah.
And my relationship, I didn't speak to two of them. I've got 3 older brothers. I lost contact with 2 of them for 3 years.
Wow.
And it's these days, people with mental health issues or addiction, and it's become much more easy to talk about.
Yeah.
I think it was frowned upon more back then. When I first finished, really too many people, the odd one.
Yeah.
But as time goes by, the more people I've met who've been to those places, dark places, and who are coming out and speaking about it, it makes it feel a bit easier. I honestly used to think that you'd have to have a weak mentality, you'd have to be an idiot to fall into drink or drugs or gambling or putting yourself in situations and locations that aren't good or beneficial and jeopardizing relationships.
Yeah.
I used to think you'd have to, why would you do it? You must be stupid.
Yeah.
I will never be you. That's what I used to think when I see people in real trouble. Arrogantly, maybe. And then I was that person for a brief time. But it's part of the journey, and I feel
Did you slip there slowly, or was it more of a...
Quite quickly.
Yeah, you know what? I'm here already. Wow, how did that happen?
I think initially I dabbled in certain things just to try and get the odd buzz and the odd high.
Chasing what you had as a bird?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, there's no exact science to why you do something. I think accumulation of things put me in a place that I needed some escapism.
Yeah.
Escapism's a great word, because I was looking for escapism from reality. And reality was facing up to problems. Problems of, this financial problem, this tax bill, this relationship. How do I deal with problems when I haven't got football? Because problems when you play football aren't problems.
Yeah.
I'll explain that. When you play football, you've got the joy of football and the competitiveness and all the things we do, adrenaline, the dopamine, all those things, to keep you forward-thinking and energetic, irrelevant of the other issues. When you've got issues without football, these issues become huge. They're like mountains. But when you were playing, they were fine. Because you had finances coming in.
Yeah.
You also had support from everyone and anyone. Yeah. And any support you want when you're playing. You've got all these different people you can go to. And someone described it to me, and it was a great analogy. So that if you're a huge tree, and you've got a stake wrapped around you the whole time to help you grow, but then the stake gets taken away, which is the football, and then a storm comes in.
Yeah,
you're in a world of trouble. And I thought, that makes sense, because the football's always... Even when my dad died when I was at Tottenham.
Okay.
And I've talked about that before, and I was comfortable talking about it. It was a horrendous time. He got diagnosed terminally ill, lung cancer, quite quick. And it all happened in a few months. And football got me through that quite quickly. Okay. I think I had some... What's the word? Maybe grief, delayed grief later. But... even that, so huge to me, the relationship I had with my dad, because I had to, I'm a footballer. I've got to get back on the pitch.
Gave you that focus.
Yeah. Whereas when you don't have the football, problems become huge. So the escapism, back to the point, the escapism is what I was after. And I got it for a while, but then it grabs hold of you. And then you get some help, and people you start understanding behaviours and patterns, and I think it's made me a better person. I'm definitely better for it.
Did you feel like you got to the point where you would say you were an alcoholic or a drug addict?
No, the drink wasn't a big... I was more... It was more coke with me. Cocaine. I had a spell on cocaine and smoking some weed, and the drink was I could live without it. I wasn't an alcoholic. No, I didn't feel... I could sit in a house with was alcohol and not drink it. Yeah. So,
did you feel like you were addicted to cocaine?
For a while I was. Yeah, because I got to the point where I didn't think I could do things without it.
Right, okay.
Which was nonsense.
Yeah.
Of course I could. And what you do, and anybody would tell you, like any drug or any addiction. You manage it initially. You might do it once a week, twice a week. Give yourself an extra third day, and then it just quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put myself when I got help. I put myself around people who've been through it. And
when you mentioned help, I was going to ask, are we talking therapy or is it like a group type setup?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a bit of both. I'd done therapy previously before I had any problems, actually, when I first stopped playing, because I thought it'd be beneficial.
Yeah.
And I didn't stick to it, which maybe I should have done. But therapy was good. It was good. You've got to be in. You've got to be prepared to go deep. I don't think it's normal to play football for the time I did, and to be to go from not having a career into for a smooth transition to happen into normal life. I know there are players out there who say they have. Right. I know that, and I'm not saying they're lying, but I don't think that's the norm.
Do you think we just probably don't hear about it with people that say aren't in the media? But do you think it's really common for ex-players to have issues like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know it is.
Yeah.
Because I was amazed how many reached out to me.
Right. Okay. Once you started talking about it, gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't dwell on it. I'd spoke about it a few times, and I'm speaking here. I've spoke, I don't know, 4 or 5 times on it.
Yeah.
Because I've lost the fear of talking about it. People judging you, because so many more people have come out, and actually, the reality is, you become more normal to people if you've had some issues.
Yeah.
It's okay, but people actually gravitate towards you more. Do you know what I mean? I know so many players who've had spells of real depths of despair, if not worse. I know a couple of players who've been even worse than that. But one thing footballers have, hence the fact they made footballers, is resilience generally.
Yeah.
I've seen it personally firsthand, and friends with, and seen it in myself, guys who have really been in a bad place come through and actually be thriving again.
Yeah.
And that takes something. Well, you've got no choice. In the end, you've got to get to a point where you go, I'm going to jump off a cliff, or I'm going to be a normal, decent person. And the whole world doesn't revolve around me and me feeling sorry for myself. Get a grip of yourself. And that's the old school thing. Get a grip of yourself. That would be my mum. But
sometimes that message is beneficial, though. It's
good.
Alongside the therapy and the more sort of, let's say, sensitive solutions, sometimes it is helpful to say to yourself or to someone to say,
it is.
Get a grip.
Yeah.
Do you think there should be more done to help protect people like yourself who don't understand the finances and that sort of thing?
I think there is more.
There is more now.
But it's still not, you can never get a fail-safe system, because if you're 17, 18, 19, 20 and start making, let's say back then it was 10, 20 grand a week, and now it's 80, 100. The person you might only trust in the world, your dad, your uncle, your cousin, your dad's mate, who's an IFA.
Right.
You don't know anyone, and your footballer friend says, "Oh, I know a guy who comes in a suit and impresses you and shows you the brochure." How do you ever stop those close connections? The football club might say to you, "Look, don't do this," and he goes, "Hold on, it's my dad's mate."
Right. Okay.
And that's one example.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can stop it, but what you can do is you can really start to try and educate players at a young age of the pitfalls that others have had. That's the best message. I mean, I know some lads who've been into academies talking to, who've gone bankrupt and stuff like that. But the reality is this: where there's money, there's greed, and there's bad people. The problem is with young footballers generally, and this is a generalisation because there are many exceptions, working class lads who have fame and fortune really quickly with no role models around them who've ever had money. What?
Yeah.
So, what do you put into a pension? How much do you save?
Yeah.
If you're earning 10 grand a week, how much do you spend on a house? What car do I get? Tax is what, 40, 45%, whatever, all these, right, I want to play football, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Well, I go Liverpool, I'm getting advice off 2 England internationals who live locally to me, about an IFA they know,
Right.
who works for a huge company, who have 50, 60, 80, 90 players, managers, blah, 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 blah. You build up a relationship with that person, years down the line, you know, you realise that this guy's not been doing his job properly. And various things have happened along the way. So you do have a spell with the fight, and I've sat down with many. There's lots going on with this at the moment, actually, in out there that will be out soon. You'll see some documentaries coming out about this stuff soon.
Okay.
But there's a lot of guys out there, footballers, ego, you know, with our ego and with our sense of not wanting to seem weak, where you don't want to share the fact that you've made bad decisions because you look like a fool. The financial abuse in football won't stop.
Okay.
It can't.
Especially as the money continues to grow.
Whatever level.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Where there's money, there'll be abuse. There'll be abuse because people want to make money. And the easiest way to do it is make it off other people.
If you enjoyed this, you can watch the full 2-hour-long episode with Danny Murphy right here.